One of the most delicious things to enjoy on a pie is the crust. And today I'm going to show you how to make a super simple, flaky, and delicious pie crust. Some people find it intimidating and even difficult to make a pie crust, but I'm going to show you how easy it is. Welcome to my channel. And if you're new, welcome to the family. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video with others. I'm also going to be posting the ingredients in the description below as well as other useful links. For this recipe, I'll use 2.5 cups of unbleached all-purpose flour. I like to fluff the flour in the container before I measure it. And I'll use the straight part of a knife to level the cup. This is to avoid adding too much flour and ensure that I have 1 cup. I'll be adding the flour to my mixing bowl. Next, I'll be adding 2 teaspoons of granulated sugar. If I'm going to use the dough to make a savory dish such as a chicken pot pie, I'll add only 1 teaspoon of sugar. I have here 2 sticks of very cold butter, which is the same as 16 tablespoons or 1 cup or half a pound. And I'm going to be cutting the butter into very small pieces, about 1/4 inch. If you're using unsalted butter, you're going to add half a teaspoon of salt to your flour mixture. I personally like to use salted butter, therefore I'm not going to be adding any extra salt. And this is how the butter looks like. I try not to touch it too much with my hands because my hands are warm and we don't want to melt the butter. You can add the pieces directly into the flour mixture. But if your butter is too soft, put it in a little glass container and then in the refrigerator for at least half an hour before adding the pieces to the flour. This is a hand pastry blender or dough blender. And if you're interested in a similar product, I'm going to leave the link in the description below. But you can perfectly use your hands. Just ensure that you work this quickly because your hands are warm and the heat can melt the butter quickly. And we don't want the butter to melt. You can also use a stand mixer with the paddle attachment. And it will be completely mixed in just a few seconds. I personally prefer the dough blender. As you can see, I'm rotating the bowl as I mix the flour. This process is going to take me between 4 to 5 minutes. Every so often, I'm going to be removing the pieces of dough that sticks to the dough blender. And at the same time, it's going to give me a good idea of the size of the pieces that are left. I'm looking for a consistency of piece sizes. And as you can see, you can perfectly do this process with your hands. Just ensure, like I mentioned before, that you do this process quickly to avoid melting the butter. We're going to continue rotating the bowl and mixing the flour with the butter until we get to that pea-size consistency. As you keep mixing the butter with the flour, you're going to notice that the pieces that stick to the dough blender begin to feel smaller and smaller each time. And this is the consistency that I'm looking for. It has very tiny pea-sized butter pieces. Some pieces are a little bit larger than others, and that's perfectly fine, and that is exactly what I'm looking for. Here I have very cold water, and I'm going to be adding ice and let it melt for a couple of minutes. Once the ice melts and the water is very cold, I'm going to be using only half of a cup or 8 tablespoons. I'll be drizzling the flour mixture with just a couple of tablespoons of the cold water at a time. And then I'm going to mix it with the pastry blender, rotating the bowl. A little bit more of the water. Continue mixing it and incorporating it with the pastry blender. You're going to start noticing little clumps forming, and that's perfectly okay. I like to do a gentle mixing with my hand to incorporate the loose flour that's left at the bottom of the bowl. Don't forget that we're using only 8 tablespoons of the cold water, or half of a cup. Continue incorporating it with the pastry blender or with your hands. The dough should not feel wet but moist. It is still going to be crumbly, but when you press it with your fingers, it's going to form a clump and stick together. You can see that my dough is loose but clumpy. It is ready. Now I'm going to dump it into my countertop or a smooth surface. Use your hands to gather all the clumps together. We are not kneading this dough. And now I'm going to show you a little trick to make this dough nice and flaky. I flatten it lightly and then I fold it in half. Then I'm going to gather it again, flatten it lightly, fold it in half one more time, and I'm going to be repeating this process 2 more times for a total of 4 flattening and folding in halves. And finally, I'm going to turn it into a disc to be stored in the refrigerator. I like to use plastic wrap, and then you should store it at least for 1 hour before you use it to make a pie. I like to make several of these and freeze them. Once I'm ready to make a pie for any special occasion or just simply a Sunday dessert, I take it out of the freezer, put it in the refrigerator part, and let it defrost. And once I'm ready to make a pie, I take it out of the fridge and leave it at room temperature for at least half an hour so it's easy to roll and turn into a stretchy dough. This recipe is good for 2 pie crusts. Of course, depending on the size of your pie dish, just divide it in half and roll it into 2 different pieces to cover your dish. You will need one at the bottom and one on top, especially if you're making a blueberry pie or an apple pie. Here I made a blueberry pie with a lattice top. And in another video, I'm going to be showing you how to make this delicious pie. And now it's time to store the pie crust in the freezer or the refrigerator, depending on how soon you're going to use it. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope that you have enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video with others. I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. Have a wonderful and very blessed day.